I decided there was going to be a war, a repetition, a resumption of World War One, and I thought that to get a job, my main purpose in life was to find a job. Everybody was trying, and no one was getting jobs in those times. That there was going to be a war, as in World War One. All the reporters would want to go to Paris or to London. Very few would want to go to Berlin. So I zeroed in on Berlin. I learned German. The Daily Oklahoman had expressed an interest in hiring two Tulane students. And the first student was hired. Then when I was ready, they sent me word that they couldn't afford to hire any more, so I didn't get it. I applied to the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. I applied to all the newspapers available. All of them turned me down. So I was, my first year out of Tulane, I had nothing to do. And my German teacher said, I can get you a scholarship to Heidelberg for a summer study there. Can you go? I thought that would be impossible. Travel at that time was just for the well-off. But I found out I could get a job as a workaway on a ship there and back, and my $100 award for the Human Interest Story Contest would carry me through the summer. So I went to Germany. And I was very impressed with the Germans. My own country was deep in depression, but the Germans were out of it. And I later discovered how they got out of it. They got out of it by building a huge arms program and a huge army. They absorbed all the unemployed in those two functions. And as I watched them and lived among them, I began to be frightened by them because we were given lectures every day by German-speaking members of the faculty who spoke beautiful German, and we would learn from them. I discovered that all the themes were the same. It was the Germans were superior to almost everybody and everything, in science, in arts, in politics, in sports. That year they won their own Olympics. And, but they were always prevented from being number one nation by some conspiracy of people who hated Germans. At one time, the French, previous to that, the Vatican, now the international Jews. And I began to worry about that. I came to the conclusion they really believed the stuff I was reading in newspapers. I thought it was just for politics. It wasn't. They really believed it. And I went and lived with some Germans who were officers, young officers in the army, my age, and they had 2 years of military training. They were prepared to move as one on the word of the Fuhrer. I listened to the Fuhrer, and he scared me to death. I decided that this was a nation with a grudge against the world and developing the means to work it out. So I left Germany that summer scared to death and very anti-Nazi. And I think that was the dominant fact of my life for several years thereafter. I went back to New Orleans. I finally got a job on there was a columnist, Dorothy Dix, Advice to the Lovelorn. She was, appeared in all newspapers, but she lived in New Orleans, and she's the one who donated the $100 prize for the Human Interest Story. And when she heard I'd been turned down by all the papers, she phoned one and got me a job. So I went to the New Orleans item. And then while I was there, I applied for a Rhodes Scholarship, and I got it. So I left and went back to Europe. And I spent the next 2 years, the second of which was the year war broke out, in Europe, in Oxford.